So I just wanted to do kind of a fun video. Um, so uh, the other day I'm scrolling through Facebook or whatever on my phone while I'm working, and because I have a lot of downtime while I'm working at times, and I scroll through that, and an article 10 One Piece characters who would be the perfect romantic match for Luffy. And I'm like, okay, let's see what this has. So I start going through it. Of course, the cover is, Nami and Boa, which I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah. Um, and I was like looking through, like it goes through them, like from like, I guess the least likely to the most likely. And I'm like, okay, some of these I can see, and other ones I'm like, no. Um, and this is not me, shaming anyone based on like who they ship together or anything like that. This is just in my opinion. I'm like, okay, some of these girls don't have that type of a connection to Luffy where that would be something that would happen. Some of these girls already have someone else that they clearly like, in certain cases. And in other cases, it's just like, that doesn't make sense. So I just kind of thought I'd go through and kind of give my thoughts on them. Again, I'm not, shaming anyone based on like who they ship with Luffy or with each other, with different characters in One Piece. This is just from my point of view. I just thought it would be a fun little video that I could do. So here we go. So it's just kind of like, these are different women, that could be, perfect matches for Luffy. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess we'll see what happens. So the first one that they have is Nojiko, who is Nami's sister. So, first of all, Luffy really only interacted with Nojiko back during Kokoyashi Village during the Arlong Park arc, and he didn't interact with her all that much. The rest of the crew were the ones that actually heard Nojiko tell them the story about Belmere. Luffy didn't really listen to that. Yes, she is probably thankful to Luffy for, saving her village and everything, and, her sister and everything the same way that Nami is, but I don't see there being this big, huge connection between Nojiko and Luffy where she would just fall head over heels for Luffy and everything, and I'm just like, I don't quite see that, but I mean, if you ship Luffy with Nojiko, that's fine. I just don't quite see how that fits. I kind of ship Nojiko with Ace, but I'm like, there's never been any interaction between the two of them as far as we're aware, so there's not really much I can go on there. I was trying to think of like who I would ship her with, and I'm like, I don't really have anyone that would be like a logical conclusion that Nojiko could be in a relationship with. There's like the kid that helps her out on the tangerine farm, but no. So there's not really that. I mean, if you like Nojiko and Luffy, that's fine, but I don't see that. Next up, they have Kaya, and I'm just like, okay, these first two, they're really picking from left field, way out in left field. So, of course, really the only interaction Kaya has had with Luffy, again, is him showing up and saving her town, and helping Usopp and everything, and defeating Kuro, and all of that. But the thing is that Usopp and Kaya are the two that have this connection between each other, that have this, childhood friendship and everything, like him telling her the stories and all of that. And I'm sure that Kaya is like happy whenever she hears that Luffy and the others are okay, but she's more like, oh, we got an update on Usopp, and like seeing him with his bounty poster as Soge King, and then now his more current bounty poster. She probably has the posters of the Straw Hats up at her, up in her mansion, kind of the same way that Bartolomeo does on his ship. Although I doubt she's like fangirling over them the entire time, but she is still very proud of them. And I'm sure that whenever the Straw Hats return to, Syrup Village and the Gecko Islands, I'm sure she'll be happy to see them, but the main one she'll be happy to see is Usopp, not Luffy. So I don't see that one. So I think the first two, they're really trying to pull from left field. Then we have Margareta, which I can see her. She's the main blonde female Amazon from Amazon Lily that Luffy ends up kind of like slightly taking hostage when he escapes the cell. And, you know, he has her take all the flowers off of his vest and everything. And, you know, they end up talking. And she at one point has an arrow pointed at his head, which is reasonable. Well, reasonable from her perspective. But, you know, they end up developing a decent friendship. And, like, they end up actually talking a little while during that time frame. And then we know that she also ends up, you know, Luffy, you know, she gets turned to stone via everything that happens with Hancock and everything, but Luffy, of course, saves her along with Sweet Pea and Afalanda. I think I said that correctly. You know, Luffy saves them and everything, chooses to have them depetrified. And, you know, her, you know, be via that relationship, that kind of friendship that he develops with Margareta, it helps with, you know, getting him a little bit more welcomed into the island. So that helps a little bit. So I can kind of see that. But I see more it's, you know, she just, you know, she kind of likes to learn about the outside world and everything. So that's just kind of more that connection there. Also, we do know that she has been involved whenever they kind of do flashbacks to like Amazon Lily and updates and stuff like that. We see her, but not too much there. So that one's not quite as out of left field. That's a little bit more center field. I don't know why I'm going with a baseball metaphor. I don't care for baseball. And next up on the list, we have Tashigi. Okay. First off, Tashigi really has not had much interaction specifically with Luffy. Her interactions in regards to the Straw Hats have been much more with Zoro and Nami because of what happened on Punk Hazard, and also Sanji to a degree. I mean, yeah, she's been around Luffy several times in certain cases, like they were both in the cell together at Punk Hazard and some other stuff, but for the most part, her connection to the Straw Hats is drawn more towards Zoro. Not that Tashigi and Luffy would make a bad pair, I just don't quite see it being as lucrative, I guess, or as understanding. Or I don't see them having like the right kind of chemistry that one would expect to come with someone that would be in a relationship with Luffy. I do personally ship Tashigi with Zoro, obviously. I personally ship them together. Nothing against Zoro and Hiyori, but I just more see him and Tashigi being a much better, you know, much better companions in certain cases. But I don't see there's a lot of possibility for like Tashigi to want to be with Luffy. She respects him because she's seen the way that him and his crew act, and what she saw at Alabasta, and even a little bit of what she saw at Marineford, because she was at Marineford when Luffy was trying to save Ace, and then of course very much during the interaction on Punk Hazard. So she's seen the fact that Luffy and the others will protect innocents, that they don't try to just willy-nilly try to attack innocents like the way a lot of other pirates do and stuff like that. So she at least knows that Luffy and the Straw Hats are not bad pirates. And given current things that are happening in the story right now, there's the possibility, I guess, that Tashigi might be seeing the Straw Hats again, but I don't really know at the moment. Next up, there's Perona, and I'm like, okay, nothing against Perona. I love Perona. I think she's adorable. I really like her post-time skip dress. I think it's just so cute with all the little fluffs and frills all over it. But she can cook. Perona can cook to a degree. But she's at the very least not poisoned by her own cooking from what we saw in, with her with Mihawk and everything. But I don't see there being this huge connection because Perona, yeah, she interacted with Luffy a little bit on not on Punk Hazard, on a, you know, Thriller Bark, but there wasn't really a whole lot of comparison there. She more interacted with Zoro and Usopp, and of course during the whole, time skip section, she's around Zoro a whole lot, but And I like Perona more with like Mihawk. I see that being a more likely pair there. Admittedly, there's a good chunk of an age difference, but that would be the one thing that I would think, but I don't know. Um, I don't quite see Perona and Luffy getting along in that regard, but if you ship them, that's fine. I'm not gonna degrade you for that. Now we're getting into a few more of the more likelihood of like ones that would be like a decent matches for Luffy. So we're moving out from left field to center field to more into actually where the bases are. Again, I don't know why I'm sticking with baseball metaphors. I don't know. I started it and I'm going to stick with it. So the first one that we have that's a little bit more of a likelihood is Rebecca. From Dressrosa, Princess Rebecca, Lady Rebecca, however you want to put it. So, lady in waiting to the current princess of Dressrosa. So, by the way, Violet is not on this list. But Violet doesn't have a huge... Well, she does interact with Luffy a fair amount while they're running around Dressrosa, but Rebecca is the main one that has that interaction with Luffy throughout Dressrosa. So, I can see Rebecca and Luffy being a pair. I can see that being something that is much more of a likelihood. They developed a friendship at Cordia Coliseum, and then, of course, Luffy... he doesn't want to leave her alone when he has to go and, try to deal with Doflamingo. So, Sabo kind of stays and ends up helping with that. So there's that and such. And she's one of the ones that very instantly can tell that you're not Lucy. You're not Lucy. Who are you? When Sabo shows up. So there's that. So she can instantly tell that. Also, Rebecca, like a lot of the girls on this list can fight to some degree. Kaya not so much, and Nojiko not so much. Or at the very least, we haven't really seen them demonstrate any ability to fight. But Perona can fight using her, ghosts, and Tashigi can fight using her swords and stuff. And Margareta can fight using her bows and arrows and everything with her snake bow. Rebecca can fight as well because she was in the Cordia Coliseum for several years. She does know how to fight. So, and we see her fight throughout the course of the Dressrosa arc. We see her try to fight against Diamante and other stuff. So, her, she can fight, so she can kind of defend herself to a degree. Although Luffy just kind of like pins her to the floor really quickly when she tries to attack him after she buys him food. Also, she bought him food. So that's one of the reasons Luffy's like, yeah, I'm going to protect Dressrosa because Rebecca bought me food. I'm like, oh, Luffy. Oh, Luffy. So yeah, chalk that up to another instance of Luffy saved an island because a girl gave him food. So there's that. There's not really too much else there. I would be okay with Luffy and Rebecca, but I'm more like Rebecca with like Kobe. But I also like Kobe with Hibari. So there's like that, like I'm like, well, who else would Rebecca be with? I'm like, I don't know. Find her some other person. But I'm like, I like those comparisons, or I like those connections there. I can kind of see Luffy and Rebecca. There's like a 3-year age difference though, because Rebecca's 16 and Luffy's 20. Luffy's 19, although he's probably getting pretty close to 20 at this point in time in the actual timeline of the story. So next up we have Nefeltari Vivi, or possibly Nefeltari D Vivi, depending on how you want to look at it. I don't know when this article came out, but possibly before that revelation was made. And even then. So Vivi and Luffy, I can very much see Vivi and Luffy end up being like a couple. I can see Oda maybe attempting that, or like I can see why people, ship that. I to a degree can kind of ship that as well. I more ship Vivi with Koza though, just because of their relationship and their interactions. But Vivi, of course, is the Princess of Alabasta. Technically, she is the would-be Queen of Alabasta at this point in time, given the fact that Cobra is dead, but we're not focusing on that. She has a great relationship with Luffy and the rest of the Straw Hats, so there's that connection there. That would very much lead much more into a good chunk of a relationship possibility beyond, you know, some of the other ones that are on this list that are a little further back that I've already talked about. She has this connection with them. She spent a good deal of time with them at the beginning of the Grand Line and everything, and going into Alabasta. So she's got this connection with the Straw Hats, and we're quite certain that she's going to end up seeing the Straw Hats again and be welcomed in with like open arms. Maybe have a little bit of a tense reunion when it comes to Robin, since they didn't leave off on the best terms, but you know, we'll see what happens there. You know, get to meet them. She'll probably scream when she sees Brooke, which is fair enough. But you know, she'll be very happy to see the crew again. And if Oda put Vivi and Luffy together, I'm fine with that. I'm the one that made the joke about Wapol and Vivi running off together being very soap opera-like and everything. When that chapter came out. But I don't see that happening or anything like that. But like, I more put Vivi with like Koza. But yeah, Vivi and Luffy I would be fine with if Oda did that. Although pretty much a lot of people pretty much stick that if Oda did could do like the harem manga with Luffy, Vivi would definitely be one of the girls that would be like part of Luffy's harem, which there's so many fan fictions about that and so much fan art of that. Next up we have Nico Robin, which again, I mean, like, if Oda wanted to write it that Robin and Luffy ended up together, I would be fine with that. I don't have a problem with that. They have a very good connection. He did save her life. I mean, like, most of the... Okay, so Rebecca, he helped save her life. For Vivi, he helped save her life. Kaya, it was more Usopp that saved her life, but there's still a connection there because Luffy was part of that. Same thing with, like, Nojiko, and, you know, the village and everything. Luffy didn't really ever save Tashigi's life, as far as I'm aware. As far as I can remember, he didn't. And, you know, a few other things here and there. But, you know, Luffy and Robin have this very good relationship. She's been part of the crew for a good chunk of the story and everything at this point in time. You know, he, of course, just like the rest of the crew, want to help her find the rest of the, you know, history of the Void Century and everything, which, if Robin was not on the ship, or if none of the other Straw Hats had an interest in the history of the, you know, the Void Century and the true history of the world, Luffy would not care. But as I've stated before in other videos, that like, you know, they reach Laugh Tale and they start going through, you know, Robin starts reading them what's on the poneglyphs and everything. I think Luffy would listen because it's Robin and it's part of her dream and he wants to help her achieve that. I mean, like, he fought through NS Lobby and CP9 and Lucci and everything like that to get to Robin and to save her. Admittedly, the rest of the crew at the time, as you know, did the same thing, including Frankie. You know, so there was that whole thing, but, you know, they all fought through that and everything. And, you know, it was like Luffy that kind of helped Robin realize that, yes, I want to live and everything. But yeah, Luffy, you know, because it would be Robin telling them about the true history and everything, I think Luffy would listen, or at least have it be vaguely explained to him of like maybe who Joy Boy was. But like beyond that, like, Luffy really wouldn't care. The rest of the crew might care to a degree. Some of them might, but you know that. Although when it comes to Robin, I do tend to more ship her with like Frankie, although I know that there are other people that like ship her with Zoro, which is again fine. I know there's other people that also ship like Perona and Zoro, again fine. Yeah, when it comes to Robin and Luffy, I could see that happening. But I also more just like see her more with like Frankie or something to a degree. Next up, we have the top two, which of course are the two that are up at the top of the page with Luffy for the article heading. So number 2 on the list is Nami. So Nami, of course, is well, if you don't want to bring Uta into the mix in regards to like whether or not Uta is canon in regards to her interactions with Luffy, Nami is kind of the girl that Luffy has known the longest. That's not like Dodon or Makino, or any other like random girls or women that lived in like the village or whatever. But you know, Nami is the one that he's known the longest and everything. She's you know, the navigator on the crew. We see lots of stuff that is just like Nami and Luffy interacting with each other and arguing at times, and also Luffy being very sweet at times when it comes to Nami and stuff like that. You know, but Luffy has those moments, of course, when it comes to Robin as well and other members of the crew when they just need someone to, you know, to give them some comfort or whatever. I personally very much do ship Luffy and Nami. They are my main ship when it comes to One Piece. Just because I very much love their interactions with each other and just like the relationship that they seem to show. I would love it if Oda had the two of them end up together, but I also would understand if he put Nami with someone else. I know a lot of people like Nami and Zoro or Nami and Sanji. I was trying to think if there was really anybody else. I know there's some people that like Nami and Usopp, and I'm like, I could kind of see that a little bit. But like Sanji, I more ship Sanji with Pudding, and stuff, so I could see that. You know, also just Nami loves money, so she'd be happy with money. But I don't think she's going to fall in love with money, and have that type of a relationship. I think that's the recycling truck going by. But, you know, Nami and Luffy are the main ship that I have when it comes to One Piece, and I would love it if Nami and Luffy ended up being together at the end of the story. But I am also not going to be surprised if Nami ends up with someone else, or if Luffy ends up just not really with anybody at the end of the story, just because Luffy hasn't really shown any interest in girls. You know, speaking of which, we have the top of the list, or the last one on the list, we have Boa Hancock. So, pointing out the whole Luffy doesn't have interest in girls, a lot of people point out, oh, well, Luffy, you know, reacted when, like, you know, Bon Clay turned into Nami and, you know, flashed him and Usopp and the rest of the crew, or, you know, Luffy had a reaction to Nami doing her happiness punch on Alabasta and everything in the bath. But I'm like, and then he didn't have any reaction when it came to, you know, Hancock and everything like that, when he saw her in the shower and the bath and everything. Nothing happened there. And I'm like, well, a lot of people point out that, and I think Oda has addressed this as well, is that Luffy is copying Usopp in those moments. You know, so Usopp has the funny reaction, so Luffy has the same kind of funny reaction. But whenever he's around Hancock, when he first sees her in the bath on Amazon Lily, you know, his reaction is kind of the first thing that he kind of recognizes is the symbol on her back, the hoof of the dragon. And then after that, you know, when he is slightly embarrassed to have seen her naked, but he knows that that's not really appropriate for him to see her naked, but he doesn't have the reaction of like, you just saw the most beautiful woman in the world naked. What are you gonna do? And he doesn't turn to stone or anything like that because he's, you know, immune to her powers, because he doesn't have that, you know, affection for her or whatever. He doesn't develop those lustful intentions and everything like that, or those different types of admirational intentions or anything like that that we see that are seem to be more required for the Mera Mera no Mi to work. So I know that there's like so many people that ship Luffy and Hancock, and again, not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't really ship Luffy and Hancock together. I have my own issues with Hancock. I'll be going over those a lot more when I get to the Rulers and Royals video, where I talk about, you know, the different Amazon Lily Empresses and stuff like that. I'll talk about those then. But for the moment, I just have my issues with Hancock, where really the only ones she tends to show affection to are her sisters and Luffy. And I'm not a big fan of like women who decide to kick animals out of their way. And yes, I know that she has reasons for why she is the way that she is, and I'm not demeaning everything that happened with her in, you know, with her and her sisters in Marie Joie and with the Celestial Dragons and everything like that. I'm not demeaning anything like that. God, no. All of that was exceedingly traumatic. But I'm also like, okay, I don't particularly think that gives you the right to kick small, cute baby animals. To a degree. Although it is hilarious watching her just like be mean to any man that is not Luffy. And I was trying to think if there was like any other like I was trying to think if there's any other men that people tend to ship Hancock with. I know that there's some that like ship her with like Mihawk. And I'm like, okay, maybe. But I was trying to think if there were any others that like would like that like Hancock would have possibly ended up with, and I'm like, I really can't think of any that would have been someone that Hancock would have ended up with. I mean, Luffy is the main one that she interacts with that is a male, but even then, there's not really too much else there. Yes, she adores him and she has the love sickness for him and everything like that. Which is very much harped upon as being, you know, a love sickness that can kill and everything like that. And one of the reasons why she helps him with getting into Impel Down and everything, and why she helps him, you know, at Marineford and other stuff, you know, those reasons are because of, you know, she is in love with him, and I'm not denying the fact that she is in love with him. I just, you know, and she's asked Luffy to marry him so many times, and I'm quite certain that Luffy knows what marriage is at this point in time. But Luffy is not interested in marriage with anyone, really. I mean, if Oda wanted to pair Luffy with Hancock at the end of the story, I guess there's not really anything I could do against that, because I've already stated that, like, whoever Oda ends up putting them with, that's in canon who they end up with. That doesn't mean that I can't, you know, have other ideas, which obviously I do. But I wanted to go through this list and be like, okay, some of these make sense, like Hancock and Nami and Robin and Vivi and, you know, Rebecca and everything. I was slightly surprised they didn't have Shirahoshi on this list, in all honesty, but then I'm also like, well, maybe not. Just because there doesn't really seem to be any type of a, I guess, attempt at any type of a romantic thing between the two of them. But, you know, there wasn't really too much else there in that regard. But, you know, but then there's like Kaya and Nojiko and Tashigi and Perona that I'm like, I don't think there's really much of a connection here. I mean, like, unless you just go with, like, you know, like the harem route version where it's just like, oh, Luffy just ends up with any woman that he comes across that he finds attractive. Which there's a lot of fanfics that have that be the case, where it's just like, oh, Luffy found this girl. Oh, she's pretty. Oh, he saved her. Oh, now they're in a relationship and blah, 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 blah. You know, those tropes for harem anime. Which One Piece is not a harem anime. It's not a harem manga or a harem anime, although there's lots of fanfics that are that setup as well, which is fine. Because they're separate between what actually happens in the manga and the anime and what happens over there in fan fiction realm. Again, I tend to, out of all of the ones that are on this list and out of all of the girls in One Piece in general, yeah, the one that I would mainly put Luffy with is Nami. I can see possibilities with Robin and Vivi as well, possibly Rebecca, but mostly with Nami. Hancock a little bit to a degree, but even then, you know, I've stated my case on those things. So that's what I have. I just wanted to do this video because it was just kind of like a fun little thing that I saw that I'm just like, well, I can make a video out of that, and I kind of need some to fill up these next couple of weeks while they're on hiatus and stuff like that, since I'll be doing the Royals and Rulers discussions and everything. So this Sunday is Father's Day, and I will have a video up, and it is going to be the Bleach Father's Day one. So it's me talking about a bunch of the different fathers that are in Bleach and kind of like their roles in the series and their roles in their families and stuff like that. So that will be going up on Sunday. So I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye!